This is a deplorable production.
Well, for nearly a year, Google has been working overtime to keep us from uncovering the true origins of COVID-19, and we may now be learning why. Let's tell the story, and let's start with Peter Daszak. You remember him. He is the scientist with EcoHealth Alliance who worked very closely with the Wuhan Institute of Virology on bat coronavirus research. You may also recall, by the way, that Daszak served on the World Health Organization's COVID-19 investigation team. This brings us to an important point. The same guy that may have played a crucial role in creating the novel coronavirus was in charge of finding its cause. That's interesting. Very interesting. It's like having your prime suspect be your lead investigator on a crime. Anyway, as you know, no conclusion was reached in that investigation. But since then, we know evidence has pointed widely to the idea that the virus did, in fact, start in a lab. So let's move the story forward. What does this have to do with Google? Well, a bombshell report out by the National Pulse reveals that for over a decade, Google.org, the tech giant's charity arm, has been financially supporting Peter Daszak and his EcoHealth Alliance research. This here is one of his most recent coronavirus studies. It's from 2018, and you can see on this document that we have highlighted where Google is clearly recognized as a financial contributor. So what does this mean? Well, let's put this back into perspective. If Daszak is your prime suspect, Google was his business partner. So if he gets caught, Google gets caught. Does that not help explain, or does that not raise questions about the tech giant's extreme censorship when it comes to the COVID-19 origins? They don't want us connecting the dots? Here now to help connect the dots, Steve Hilton, the host of The Next Revolution. Steve, you've been all over this censorship and the COVID-19 origin story. So here we have Google essentially helping cover up for someone they were helping fund by censoring any questions off of the internet. I think, Steve, so many times we can explain away censorship as it's outside the bounds of acceptable thought, but here we have something more seemingly nefarious. It seems like more like CYA than extreme or outside the bounds of acceptable thought. What's going on here?
It's a really shocking story, and it just adds to this increasingly big mountain of evidence that we've got a massive establishment cover-up going on, because the people at the heart of this know what they did. People like Peter Daszak, people like Fauci himself, who of course initiated the work that Daszak then sent to the Wuhan Institute of Virology to make bat coronaviruses more airborne and more transmissible and more infectious to the human respiratory system. What we now know, as you said, is the most likely origin of the pandemic. And they're covering it up because they know they've got a guilty conscience. That's why Fauci's lying to Congress about it. And now we see that Google has been weighing in to squash that explanation that I've just laid out, that you laid out, that now many people are realizing is the most likely origin. Google have been squashing that and trying to direct people towards what they call the natural origin theory, for which there is literally zero evidence. They've been looking for evidence all over the world for the last year and a bit, have found no evidence of that. That's what Google's been pushing, especially YouTube, a division of Google. And now we know why, because they're implicated. They've got a massive conflict of interest. And the way that the establishment has circled the wagons to protect themselves and what they've been doing, it's honestly one of the biggest scandals for, I don't know, 100 years. I can't think of a bigger one if you think about the consequences of this pandemic. And the idea that it was actually created by scientists who were arrogantly operating outside the bounds of the regulation that was in place and then covering their tracks. It is so scandalous.